All right. Hello, everyone. This is Tuesday, November 28th, and this is the SIG meeting for Kubernetes documentation. Do we have any new attendees? Looking at you, Jason Kennedy.
I've actually been to a couple, but it's
sure. Every week I think we're going to get one, but never do.
It's been probably a month since I've actually been able to attend though, so I'm glad to be back, hopefully with some time to put some work in.
Welcome back. Sorry for the goldfish memory.
That's okay.
All right. Let's talk about doc sprints at KubeCon. So we have I put together a meeting for facilitators who are going to be at KubeCon, and for folks who are going to be helping out doing reviews on Wednesday at 1 p.m. Pacific. I think most of the ingredients are there, but I think that we need to go over. I think we need to go over what the actual flow of the event is going to be like, some of the logistical details, and also to make sure that that the project for sprint participants to draw issues from has all of the information that it needs. We had talked last week about sending an email to sprint participants saying, hey, what are you interested in, and following up a little bit more. But I also neglected to factor in the holiday into all of those plans. And so right now we're about a week and a half out from the sprint. So I don't know that we have enough time to, well, I mean, do we? Is it worth trying to follow up on that? Is it worth trying to send out another contact to sprint participants in advance? And if so, do we want to try and pull for interest, or do we just want to make sure that the actual sprint project is looking good and give them an update with that? I am totally open.
So Andrew and I had talked about sending out the questionnaire that we put together yesterday. I mean, in other words, after the holiday. We might not get much in the way of response, but I don't think another contact could hurt.
That's fair. Andrew, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, the questionnaire is, I think, good to go. So we could just send it out to that list that we have. If you want to take a look real quick, see if there's any other questions you want to ask them besides what we already have. We try to keep it short with just like 4 questions.
Sure. No, I reviewed it last week and it looked really good to me. So I think we can go ahead and send that out. I guess I just want to be, do we have enough, what are we going to do with the information that we get back? Do we have, do we have enough, do we have enough sense of what we're actually going to do in terms of structuring the sprints themselves with, based on user responses?
Well, I think based on the responses, we can gauge kind of what the distribution of experience is. And so if there aren't that many that have experience with actual Kubernetes or docs or whatever, then we might focus more on like the glossary stuff. But if the distribution looks pretty good, then we can maybe kind of roughly break them up into groups and like, and then I don't know, see if they're interested in working on like the user journeys pieces that we need to have fixed up.
And I guess if we wind up with interest in stuff that looks, if people seem to be headed in a user journeys direction, so I created a project too. I said I would do that in last week's meeting, and it's up there now. Just for the doc sprint. And I put more big-ish issues that Steve wrote into the one column for specifically supporting user journeys. My plan, absent any further information, is to try to break some of those down, make them a little more manageable. especially the Minikube one, which is the one I'd like to see the most. But that's a whole lot of content, and I feel as though if I want help with it, I should be more specific and help people and sort of, give people options about it. But if it looks as though we don't have that level of interest, I mean, I will do that for the Minikube one anyway, because I could use help on it from anybody at any time. But there's other large issues that could get further broken down that could support the user journeys. And I'll make more of an effort to do that if it looks as though we're going to have attendees who might be interested. And similarly, if we think we need more small bits, I mean, I agree absolutely with Andrew, send people to the glossary if they don't seem to have much background. But, if we need a backlog of smaller issues, I can try to help identify more of those too.
So I talked with Jared after he did the Write the Docs at Melbourne, the doc sprint at Write the Docs Melbourne. And I went through the issues in our repo and tried to triage. I triaged about a dozen that looked like they would be good, very small, discrete, chunkable first-time issues, and they went through them all in an hour. So
I saw that in the write-up. Yeah.
We can do. I think we can do meatier content. So I don't know that we have to. I don't know that. I don't know, Jennifer, that you have to devote a lot of time to going really granularly in some of the meatier issues, like with Minikube. I think some specificity is helpful, and I think that like in the context of a sprint, I think that like working together in a group of interested people will be helpful. But I don't know that like deep granularity is going to be like a necessary requirement. I think that based on Jared's experience, it sounds like the group was able and eager, in fact, to tackle like some meatier stuff and really dig in.
And it's likely that at KubeCon we'll get people even readier and able, right? Because Write the Docs is drawing from all the people, as opposed to Kubernetes specific interested people. I know at Write the Docs in Portland in the spring, most of the folks at the Kubernetes table were not. They knew Kubernetes was cool, and that was most of why they wanted to be there. A lot of them were first-time open source contributors. There was we've taken care of some of the, my point being that they got through a fair amount too. So we can expect, I think it's fair to expect KubeCon folks to get through more. Yeah.
Okay. And yeah, Andrew and Jennifer, that's a really good idea about sending out that questionnaire and like just preloading some of the distribution work and trying to get a sense in advance of where participants are, and being able to get a sense of what the balance on like room distribution is going to be like.
Well, I think your question about what are we going to do with the responses is a fair one too.
Well, but it also, I think your answer is perfectly valid and right on point. So that. If you both think that the questionnaire is ready to send out, as soon as we're done with this meeting, I can send it out to the participants and CC you on it, if that works for you.
Works for me. I just threw something together as a way of talking about stuff. So if you guys like it, go for it.
So, okay.
Yeah, I think it covers what we need.
Dose likes. Okay. All right. Is there anything else that we need to talk about for KubeCon prep?
I'll try to find a local donut shop and bring donuts.
Oh, excellent. I think there's a Voodoo Donut in Austin.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So the real popular one's called Round Rock, I believe. There, you know,
yes.
Round Rock donuts. Round Rock donuts are quite popular.
My ex-teammate at the bank considers herself a donut expert of many communities, including Austin, and she would definitely vote for Round Rock over Voodoo.
Round Rock donuts. Maybe we can get them in with Kubernetes icing colors.
Nice.
But are you going to send them to me?
I'm actually I'm local to Austin, and I have a CRV. If we need any type of logistic things,
Oh, yes.
just let me know.
Absolutely. that is a very firm, enthusiastic, probably, to hauling donuts and swag around Austin. So thank you, Jason.
So what day is this event? Does this overlap with the Contributor Summit? There was another. I got an invite on something else. Do we overlap with anything else, or the Kube Conformance Worker? When was this? I'm just trying to get my schedule clear.
Docsments are. Am I remembering correctly that they're Wednesday the 6th?
No, I thought they were Tuesday at 1 p.m. because the conference starts on Wednesday, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's yes, Tuesday the 5th from 1 to 5.
Okay. So I thought there was some other contributor thing that was at the same time.
Yeah, that day is the Contributor Summit, but it goes throughout the day, so we may overlap with some of their events, but
so we'll get some poll from some of those folks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tuesday's
gonna be a busy day.
Yeah, I feel like it's going to be busier than that an actual conference day.
We need to advertise big, if we got competition for that day.
So we are sold out. We actually,
cool.
There's any, my boss at the Linux Foundation was like, hey, can you boost visibility on this? And I'm like,
Done.
Done. We're at max.
Unless you want to get a bigger room, right?
Right, exactly.
Cool.
Okay, cool.
That's awesome.
Just as a side note, I mean, I have Chris Anisic, my manager at the Linux Foundation, has tasked me with finding better and richer swag for Docs participants. So I don't know. Well, I do know that I won't have time to get it all arranged before KubeCon, but look for riches, Docs riches to fall from the sky afterwards in gratitude for your many contributions.
Cool.
Asterisk after riches. All right. Let's see. I have a proposal that I wanted to discuss with everybody, and it's an idea that I'm calling issue bankruptcy. And what's become clear to me after several months now of doing weekly triage of issues that are coming into our repo is that we have a backlog of issues that in some cases we will never touch. And that's partly because issues that were actionable like a year, 2 years ago are no longer actionable due to structural changes in the repo. There are things that are perfectly good ideas, but that we are just not going to be able to touch in the foreseeable future. Like I can't foresee within 6 months and within a year whether or not we can actually get to those issues. So I don't really feel the need to preserve an archaeological record of where we are based on open issues. I mean, we can always look at the closed issues. So I want to propose the idea of going through, it's like, I'm not going anywhere for Christmas holiday, so I'm thinking about taking the week between Christmas and New Year to go over our list of open issues, look at everything that hasn't been updated in more than 6 months and close it. And it's not due to any fault of the issue, but treating our open issue log as a list of issues that we can reasonably approach. And if somebody who opens one of these issues that we close says, hey, this is really important, you should totally do this. I said, if you are willing to provide the support to make that happen, if you're willing to undertake the effort to open a PR against this and see it through, then yes, we can absolutely do it. But this issue hasn't gotten any updates in 6 months, so there's no chance that we can. I'm not keeping this open just because it's a good idea. So I don't know. I realize that is potentially fraught. Maybe it's a good idea. Maybe it's a terrible idea. So what do folks think about an issue bankruptcy?
I like it.
I mean, it's sad but fair. I mean, at some point, you just have to be realistic.
Is there some way to close the issues with an indication of why they were closed? I mean, there's a difference between this will never, ever happen because it is no longer actionable, and this is a really good idea, but unless somebody steps forward to take it, it's just not going to happen.
Sure, I think that kind of specificity. Normally, when I do bulk actions like that, I have a scratch pad with some boilerplate text that I use when responding to issues. Joe's nodding because I gave him my boilerplate. I have some boilerplate that I use when responding to issues, and it's totally feasible to like have at least have at least two different boilerplates for responding. One saying it's not feasible that we're going to get to this. Or like this is aged out, this is a good idea, and if you want to provide the resources to do it, yes. Or I mean, this issue just doesn't fit inside the scope of what we're willing to do. I think we can provide some specificity. I don't know that we need to provide. I mean, sure, we could, like, I wish that we could provide handwritten comments for every single issue that we close.
Oh no, I mean, I'm not saying that I think that's necessary. I'm just thinking that, I mean, at the very least, to note it in the issue would be great. To be able to search for it in some way would be good too.
Right.
That's a nice to have.
No, absolutely. And the last thing that I want to do is like look at an issue that we closed 6 months later and be like shrug emoji as to why we closed it. So, okay. So I've heard folks in favor of it. Hey, Joe, yeah, go for it.
A slightly different take on it. I think it's probably a reasonable idea to do, but I think to follow along with it, something that we may want to consider is a focus on when bugs coming in as a part of the triage process, encouraging people, hey, this is a great idea. You're right. It's a problem. We'd love to have that update. Can you do it? And just ask them explicitly to do it, and focus much more on guidance to improve the number of contributors coming in with like 1 or 2 patches with the existing team, kind of really helping to focus, drive that so that we can get more through the overall process and not just be 6 months later closing a bunch of things that, that we need to close because nobody's going to touch them.
It sounds to me like an opportunity to update the pull request template. Oh, Joe, I can't hear you. Are you muted?
Yeah. No, I've got shitty bandwidth.
Okay. Okay. It sounds like an opportunity to update the pull request template, saying, "Hey, thanks for opening this pull request. The chances of it being, finding some way to say the best way to get this issue addressed is to work on it yourself." To point out that this is it's an open source project, and there's absolutely like no barriers and no gatekeeping to contribution. So like giving, I guess, like forecasting as much as possible that just because an issue is opened doesn't mean that we will get to it. I guess just encouraging people to be contributors as well as reporters.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So I'm hearing people speak in favor of it. Is there anybody who really doesn't like it? Or even just like halfway doesn't like it? Is there anybody who thinks that it's a bad idea?
I know it's pretty common from other open source communities that I've been involved with. They call it more of a purge. You're using a slightly different terminology, but the concept's pretty common.
Okay.
So it's kind of a fact of life. Either take it or it's done.
Yeah, because I think it's more important that we get it down to a manageable level that we can, consistently work on. Otherwise, it just continues to build up and it's like just friction. Because I know just on the PRQ side, once we kind of got it down to, like 50 or below, it really helped us to kind of turn a corner. And then people had more faith that there was stuff going on and there was change and that process was working. So I think similarly, like for issues, that will help a lot, because then people will feel more confident if they enter an issue and that will actually get addressed.
Yeah, plus you might get a little more work, because if somebody really freaks out that their issue is about to fall off the cliff and it really was important to them, well, then they'll find some resource to say, no, I'll get this done. It's kind of a last call at the bar kind of thing, which is really nice.
That's fair. Yeah, no, that's a really good point, Andrew, is that like from a community health standpoint, like seeing active maintenance in a repo, I think it does encourage people to, it gives people faith that the work is manageable, that the scope of what's going on is healthy, it's actively maintained. There is some discretion about saying, yeah, these are the things we will work on and we'll get them done because it's being actively maintained. I don't think that we can treat this as a one-time thing either. I think it has to become like a monthly, it's just part of like monthly ongoing maintenance.
Yeah, we definitely used to have once it hit a certain, it was like an expiration date on things, and you got close to that date and like nobody's picked it up, it's going to fall off. Whatever you think it should be, a year and a half, whatever.
Yeah, and Joe just reminded me that there is an open, there's kind of a hidden cache of docs issues in Kubernetes. There are in Kubernetes, there are issues that have been flagged with the Sig Docs label. So at some point, we also need, it's a kind of a different issue, but we need to figure out how to incorporate those issues into our awareness and like factor that into the scope of what it is that we're actually looking at. So I will make a note about that.
Yeah, probably worth something for another time. I didn't think it was worth tackling at the same time, but just if you're going to attack issues, be aware of it.
Sure, and it's part of the larger question of community health. So, let's see. Okay. Anything more to say or respond to about issue bankruptcy? Okay, let's move on. Next, we have Paris talking about how to build in tech reviewers for documentation into her mentoring program. So Paris, hello.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us.
Yes.
And let's talk about tech reviewers and let's talk about mentorship.
Yeah, just to give everybody some context too, in case you weren't aware, and you might not be if you're not on the the contributor experience calls, but we've been building out mentoring strategies to help the contributor ladder continue to grow. And what I mean by that is there's different roles within the organization: member, reviewer, approver, maintainer, owner, etc. I'm actually going to post the preliminary deck in the chat right now. One of the ideas that we have is group mentoring via cohorts, cohorts like a graduating class, essentially. I've taken inspiration from several different sources. What we're trying to get away from is one-on-one mentoring. That's not to say that we're not supporting that. It just doesn't necessarily scale to where we need it to be. So this idea of group mentoring is also adding a peer mentoring concept in a very self-paced yet semi-structured learning environment. So so it's a 3-month program. People start who are currently on the same track. So for instance, current members would all be in this class to go to reviewership. And then they would have bi-weekly stand-ups where they all talk about, their goals and objectives, and their goals and objectives are coming directly from the community membership markdown file that's in the community repo. And within this program, they would be doing different activities and issue grooming and code reviews, and we'll have speakers come in and give talks on things like how to give code reviews that aren't necessarily positive in the best way, how not to sound like a jerk on GitHub, how to have back and forth conversations and take them offline, when and where to take them offline, things like that. And I was speaking to Andrew, and he said that in a previous docs docs group that you guys were talking about how to get more tech reviewers, and this could possibly float into this sort of program, if you will. So I'm very curious to hear what exactly what types of individuals you would be looking for, and also like how we could execute on this. Exactly. So the test cohort that we have is going to be launching the week after KubeCon. It'll last anywhere between 2 to 3 months. It is a predetermined group of people that we already have. And the reason why we're doing it like this as the test is we just want to see if group mentoring works, and the philosophy behind it, as well as some of the executable ideas that we have. Because, let's face it, it might not. This is a very experimental deal. Not many open source projects have like group mentoring in this type of, semi-structured environment. So we want to see if it works, but we can definitely add in this kind of tech reviewer component to each person. I do want to give a little caveat is that there's only 2 to 3 different SIG/working groups/ sub-projects that are represented in each cohort to reduce the noise, and because everybody does things differently. So that's kind of the caveat. So, these people wouldn't necessarily be reviewers on everything, on all the things. So, for instance, with the test cohort that we have right now, I know for a fact that we've got KubeADM, we have Helm and Charts. So those are the 3 that we're going with. So, these people could potentially be reviewers for those subject areas. So I just kind of want to open the floor now to talk a little bit about tech reviewers and what exactly you need out of these individuals so that I can try to see where it would best fit.
So, yeah, for the most part, we need the tech reviewers to make sure, any code that's in the documentation is correct, or especially with the changes. And just, yeah, because I think a lot of details, we just need to verify. Because, I understand, as a writer, I understand, the high level stuff, how things work, but then there may be the syntax or whatever, or a YAML file or configuration thing where it's I don't know if this is technically correct, so I just need someone to verify that. And sometimes it's not a long thing. They just need to, just take a look. And currently, a lot of times, the engineers are just too busy to look, even if it's, a one-line change or something. So it would help if we had more tech reviewers. But the question I have is, in terms of selecting tech reviewers for PRs, is it that we will just get a list and then we will assign them ourselves, or should we just do one of those at mentions to their particular area, and then they will self-select who will do the tech review?
For mentoring, that's up to us. I think whatever we think. Do you have current needs that people from a SIG apps group or a KubeADM group could fulfill for you? If so, what I can do is give you a list of the people that are in the program, and maybe even have one of their biweekly stand-ups. You or someone else from Docs could come in and talk about what it means to be a tech reviewer and what you like to see out of tech reviewer folks, and how they can actually help. And then therefore the ball would be in your court as to these upcoming tech reviewers too, which would be nice. So we could do kind of anyway, if you will. The idea ultimately when we launch, and if all goes well, that we'd have multiple cohorts going at the same time with all having different goals and multiple SIGs and things like that being involved. The test cohort is obviously limiting us a little bit with, with the code base areas and things like that. But yeah, I don't know where I was going to go with the last statement.
Just with regard to
go ahead.
So Paris, with regard to your concern about the cohort, especially the test cohort, focusing only on a few areas. The current list of tech reviewers that we have divvies them up by area. So we don't expect any given tech reviewer to be able to review any technical content. We expect, we're trying to map that way now. So that fits the current model, right?
Yeah, okay.
I can point you, we have a link in our repo wiki that I can point you to about what our pool of technical reviewers looks like right now.
Okay. I mean, I think it would be actually a great idea for you to come into one of the biweeklies, and maybe not the first one, but maybe something around like the second or third biweekly, and talk about how helpful they can be with becoming a tech reviewer, what you're looking to see out of tech reviewers, just maybe for like a 10 to 15 minute sort of chat, if you will. And then what we could do is we could just kind of start assigning people, and like Andrew said, tag these certain individuals in certain issues that you need them. And then what I'm going to be doing is tracking what each one of these folks is doing on the back end, so that when the program is over, we can essentially give them the keys to the car. And in this case, the car would be the owner's file of whatever code base that it is they're working on. And then maybe if all goes well, they can continue to be a tech reviewer for that area and be kind of like the designated reviewer.
As I'm listening to you talk, Paris, I'm realizing that we're treating it as sort of self-evident what it is that tech reviewers do for documentation. Yeah. And I realize, and I think your idea is an excellent one, that if we come in for like a 10 or 15 minute talk about this is what a good tech review looks like, this is what the process in this repo looks like, that being part of that training, that we can help set expectations, and rather than expecting a tech reviewer to come in and like figure out our process, like imparting that. And it's really straightforward, but it's not straightforward if you're new to the repo. So I think we can absolutely participate in the training that you're talking about, and just come in and say, this is what a tech review looks like. This is the scope of what most tech reviews look like. They're really easy. They're not super demanding, and it's a great way to fill like 5, 10, 15 minutes here and there, like based on if you're looking to fill like some empty spots between projects, doing tech reviews for docs is a great way to do that, or just incorporating it into like the regular schedule. But yeah, we can absolutely come in and do that. I
mean, we can also incorporate it into the ladder itself. Meaning, like, one of the things that I'm actually looking to incorporate now is the mentorship piece. So like, in order to become a reviewer or an approver, or insert higher level here into the organization, you have to participate in at least one mentor program, or be a tech reviewer, or etc. So we currently don't have that right now. It is very much based off code. So we're talking about adding these things because they do definitely promote the health of this organization and this project. So I'm actually going to do the pull request to the community membership file sometime within the next couple of days to signify that. I also in the chat put in the mentee guidelines and expectations. And the reason why I did that is at the very bottom, you'll see, not bottom, actually, it's in the middle, but you'll see development areas and activities. And this is the stuff that we're actually calling out as dev areas for people in the cohort. So I do have right now in the current review where it says suggested activity, be a tech reviewer for docs. But I'll actually create some more meat and potatoes around that based off of our conversation today, and include things like docs will come in to a bi-weekly to talk about this. But I'm anticipating that would probably be probably some of the first weeks in January. But I can come back to the next Sig Docs meeting next week, and we can talk about more specifics with that, and and who wants to come in, if it's Andrew or someone else. So cool.
So my experience with tech reviewers has been that I usually need somebody with very specific knowledge of a particular component, and it often is someone who's not on any list of current tech reviewers. So I feel like right now it's been pretty free form. What I often do is just go look and see who worked on that piece of code most recently and ask them to review. So are you moving in a direction where we will only allow tech review from people who are on a list, or do you see it that we can still have this this flexibility to bring in the person we need? You know, an example would. Oh, go ahead.
Bring in the person you need.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry. I was definitely going to say bring in the person you need 100%. This is just another way of you ultimately getting the word out and training better tech reviewers, and also getting these folks who are in this mentor program more skills and more exposure to different areas of the project. So this is not to take away anything that you're currently doing by any chance. This is just in addition to and as like a supplement.
Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off, Steve. I wanted to be adamant about that. I'm not trying to come in and take over any of your processes or anything like that. So definitely not.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, and I'd like to see more names added to our list. Most of the names that we have on that list right now are people here at Google. But in reality, we've been using a lot more people than that. So I'd like to, does that seem like it would be okay to do, to just, if I've been working with someone over and over again for the last 6 months, to just go ahead and add them to that list?
Absolutely.
Actually, let me rephrase it as a slightly different question for Paris. In a couple of the Contributex documents, there's this concept of a ladder, and if you're a reviewer, then you're in a file. Should we be using those files more actively in terms of identifying people that can help do, is this technically accurate kinds of reviews for various components?
Yeah, definitely. I would definitely say so. It's not in there. I don't think we'd have necessarily job descriptions, if you will, but I think that community membership guide definitely comes close. And it's a work in progress, as you can see. So it's definitely something that we've been talking about. And I think even at the Contributor Summit, some of the topics that have come up for people who want to discuss this are things like, what's the role of these individuals exactly? And so this is definitely a very active conversation that's going on. And if you have anything that you want to add to the community membership, start a conversation on it, or submit a PR or something. But it's definitely, I would say definitely please reach out to the people in those owners files. And if not themselves, they'll definitely give you someone as an idea or suggestion of who to reach out to and who to contact.
So I'm thinking long-term, what I would like to see is a little bit of automation too. Like maybe if we, in the owners file, like specify these different buckets or specialties, and then have like the people associated with them, then we can have like the tooling automation people like auto assign. So if we do like /assign and then like a particular specialty or something, then it would look through that list and just auto assign them. That way we don't have to like have the cognitive load to constantly look at the list and decide ourselves. Obviously the only caveat would be that we'd have to keep that list updated. But yeah.
That's something that I could do too, and help out with as well, especially if these folks will be mentees. So happy to help there.
Yeah. So let me talk to the tooling folks and see if they can help with that.
So we also list owners in the front matter of individual topics, and we're not consistent with that, but that had been a pattern in the past. So if we're going to talk about automating assigning tech reviewers, we'll need to make a decision as to, do we keep that information in 2 places or just 1 place? Because right now it's also sometimes in the front matter, and I've had the experience where if I forgot to ask one of those people for review, they got a little miffed.
Well, I think we should keep that. I think the logic should be, if the docs has a owner, they should be, set as the reviewer first. But if that's not there, then it will fall back to this other mechanism where it auto-assigns a more generic tech reviewer. Yeah. Or we could always just do it where it would assign both, like ask for a review from the owner and then one from just a regular tech reviewer. That way, if the owner doesn't get to it, we still have someone that can address the tech review.
Mm-hmm. Is there enough here that I want to make sure that we have the full discussion about automation and about conventions, about do we, like, for instance, do we add a note to the style guide about listing contributors or reviewers in the front matter? How do we want to handle the owner's file? It sounds like there's enough to discuss that we should probably have a separate discussion about this.
Yeah, you might want to add that as an agenda item for the next meeting.
Okay. Will do. All right. Paris, is there anything more that, did you get what you were looking for? And is there anything more that we want to talk about for tech reviewers and plugging into the Mentee program? Paris looks very, very frozen.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I will follow up with her later. Let us move on for now. Steve, it looks like you have added an item for an update on auto generation for ref pages.
Yeah, I've been going through and trying to understand all the different tools and processes that are used to generate the different kinds of ref docs. And it turns out the list is bigger than I thought. And one of the things that's on there is the Federation documents. There are several Federation components like KubeFed and Federation API server, that kind of thing, that we have one script that's responsible for generating those. And then there is a Federation API that has a big, one of those big long single pages where the API is documented. And the scripts for generating those were both broken because the Federation repo was recently split off from the Kubernetes repo. And so the scripts hadn't been adjusted for that. But just yesterday, Maru worked on those, and they're working now. So if anybody wants to click on those links, you can see the PRs where he fixed those, and the links where I say here and here take you to the docs where the Federation documentation pages are, if you just want to see what the Federation docs are.
Nice, they look good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm wondering if that sort of thing is going to happen a lot, because I feel like we don't have any control over the upstream sources, and a lot of times there's this refactoring or moves, so they kind of break the scripts. Is there a way to, I don't know, like protect ourselves from that sort of thing, or at least be notified when something breaks?
The only obvious way is to build it into the build automation for the various bits where we get something called out, a moral equivalent of a test, if you will.
So there's a discussion about this. It's in Slack in Sig multi-cluster, because I was working with Maru yesterday to get this fixed, and it generated a discussion. And so it seems to me on the engineering side, there is a strong desire to get a unified tool set and get more automation in the way of copying things into the Kubernetes website repo and that kind of thing. What I said to that in that discussion is that, yeah, we're kind of looking at heading that direction in Q1. And in Q4, we're doing this, just trying to understand the big picture, see what all the processes are and what all the tools are, get that documented. And then, by all means, in Q1, we want to look at this bigger picture of how do we get a more unified tool set and a more stable, easy to use process for all these generated docs. So I think we will have support from this from the engineering side.
Okay, great.
So I'm just looking in chat. Nick, there's a note for you from Peter about testing the release note tool.
Yeah, this is discussed in the release meeting, and I tested the release note tool, but it doesn't work for release 1.19. I will ping Roy for more context.
Okay, thank you. I have no way to fix it, so did you know that?
Okay.
Yeah, that looks like one we just get to track for now.
Okay. Anything else to discuss in today's SIG meeting? All right, let's call it here. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Have a good week. And
Cheers.
see you next week at KubeCon.
Thank you.